February 3rd, 1959. 120 East End Avenue, Manhattan. The heart attack comes in the afternoon. Vincent Astor is 67 years old. He collapses in his apartment overlooking the East River. The doctors arrive. They cannot save him. In his pocket, they find his father's gold watch. It stopped 47 years ago at 2:20 in the morning, the exact moment the Titanic slipped beneath the North Atlantic. Vincent has carried this watch every single day since he was 20 years old. Every morning. He slides it into his vest pocket. Every night. He removes it and places it on his dresser. The second hand has not moved since April the 15th, 1912. The watch is worth perhaps $2,000. The estate Vincent leaves behind is worth $127,377,021. His accountants have calculated it to the penny. His widow Brooke will inherit $60 million. His half-brother Jakey will inherit nothing. 47 years of watching Vincent carry their father's watch, and Jakey receives not $1. Jakey will say Vincent had the legal right to keep all the money, just not the moral right. The watch will eventually sell at auction in 2024 for $1.1 million, the highest price ever paid for Titanic memorabilia. An anonymous American will buy it. Even Vincent's watch will outlive him and serve a purpose. But on this February afternoon in 1959, none of that has happened yet. Vincent Astor dies with his father's stopped watch in his pocket. The question is, why he carried it at all. Chapter 1. The Child No One Wanted. Born into marble, November 15th, 1891. 355th Avenue. Vincent Astor is born in the mansion where his grandmother Caroline, known to everyone simply as Mrs. Astor, rules American society. The house has ballrooms that hold 400 people. That number is not accidental. Mrs. Astor believes there are exactly 400 people in New York worth knowing. Everyone else does not exist. Vincent's mother is Ava Lole Willing. She comes from Philadelphia. She is famously beautiful. Society pages describe her as having perfect features and impeccable taste. They do not mention that she is also famously spoiled, famously vain, and famously cold. Vincent's father is John Jacob Astor IV. He is gangly and unattractive. His face is too long, his body is too thin, but he has something that matters more than beauty in 1891. He has millions of dollars. His family has been accumulating wealth since his great-great-grandfather arrived from Germany with a suitcase of flutes and an instinct for what makes money grow. The baby born on this November day will inherit all of it, but first, he must survive his childhood. The closet is on the second floor of the Fifth Avenue mansion. It is not particularly large, perhaps 6 feet deep, 4 feet wide. It smells of cedar and camphor and his mother's perfume. The door has no handle on the inside. This is not unusual. Closets in 1891 are not designed for people to occupy them. When Ava Astor finds her son annoying when he trips over his own oversized feet, when he speaks too loudly, when he simply exists in a way that displeases her, she opens the closet door and puts him inside. Then she locks it. On one particular afternoon when Vincent is perhaps 7 or 8 years old, Ava locks him in the closet and goes out. Hours pass before anyone hears his cries. Finally, the butler, a man whose name will not survive in any record, finds him. Vincent is gasping, terrified, his hands bruised from pounding the door. The butler says nothing. What can he say? This is how certain families raise certain sons. The house is too large. The walls are too thick. The servants are too far away, attending to tasks in other wings of the mansion. Finally, the butler, a man whose name will not survive in any record, hears something. A distant thumping, muffled cries. He follows the sound up the grand staircase, down the long hallway to the closed door of a closet that should be empty. He opens it. Vincent stumbles out, gasping, terrified. He is crying. His face is red. His hands are bruised. The butler says nothing. What can he say? Ava Astor is his employer. Vincent is just a child. This is how certain families raise certain sons. Years later, when Vincent is an adult, he will tell a few people about the closet. Not many. Just enough that the story survives. He will describe his mother as terrifying and abusive. He will say she paid little attention to him when she was not actively tormenting him. Ava will call her son stupid. She will say he is clumsy and lumpish looking, with big feet. She will be embarrassed by his resemblance to his father, the same awkward frame, the same ungainly movements. She will humiliate him in public, in front of guests, in front of servants who cannot look away. Vincent grows up believing he is fundamentally unlovable. His mother has taught him this lesson thoroughly. But there is one person who loves him. Jacob Astor IV does not love his wife. This is apparent to everyone who knows them. Ava married him for his money. Jacob married her for her beauty. Neither received what they truly wanted, but Jacob loves his son. He spends as much time as possible away from Ava, and he takes Vincent with him. They sail together on the yacht Norma, a steel-hulled steam yacht that Jacob inherited from his own pleasure-loving father. The name comes from a Persian word meaning light of the harem. But to Vincent, it means something simpler: escape. On the yacht, his father teaches him about navigation, about the stars, about how water moves and what wind means. They sail the Hudson River. They sail to Newport. They sail anywhere that is not the mansion where Ava waits. A biographer will later write, Vincent adored him and was adored in return. Another will note that Jacob was happiest sailing with Vincent on board the Norma. This is the only tenderness Vincent will know as a child. His father's rough hands showing him how to tie a knot. His father's quiet voice explaining how to read the horizon. His father's presence, which asks nothing of him except that he exist. It is not enough to undo what his mother does, but it provides moments of reprieve. Vincent has one sister. Her name is Alice, though later she will be called Ava Alice Muriel. She is 3 years younger than Vincent. Whispers circulate through society that she may not be Jacob's daughter at all. The rumors suggest Sidney Hatch, a New York society man, or perhaps Thomas Lister, Lord Ribblesdale, whom Ava will eventually marry after the divorce. The rumors never attach themselves to Vincent. He looks too much like his father, the same awkward build, the same unfortunate face. No one doubts his paternity. This is both his curse and his proof that he belongs. Vincent attends the best schools money can buy. He enrolls at St. George's School in Middletown, Rhode Island. He graduates in 1910. He is not a distinguished student. His grades are adequate. His social skills are poor. He trips over his own feet during sports. He has few friends. What he has instead is a famous name and unlimited money. In 1910, at age 18, that is enough to guarantee him admission to Harvard College. But Harvard cannot hold him. The marriage of his parents has been disintegrating for years. Everyone sees it. Ava and Jacob barely speak. They maintain separate social calendars. They attend different parties. They sleep in different wings of their various houses. In 1909, the inevitable happens. Ava files for divorce. The grounds are infidelity. Jacob does not contest it. Perhaps he is relieved. Vincent is 17 years old when his parents' marriage legally ends. He is 19 when his father does something society considers far worse than divorce. On September 9th, 1911, Jacob Astor IV marries Madeline Talmadge Force. She is 18 years old. Vincent is 19. His stepmother is 1 year younger than he is. New York society erupts in scandal. The marriage is legal but grotesque. Madeline is barely out of childhood. Jacob is 47 years old. The age difference is 30 years. But more than that, more than the numbers, is the insult to propriety. Wealthy men take mistresses. They do not marry teenagers in formal ceremonies and present them as the new Mrs. Astor. The newspapers cover every detail. Cartoonists draw cruel pictures. Society matrons refuse to receive Madeleine, even Mrs. Astor Caroline. The grandmother, the Queen of New York's 400, makes her disapproval known. Jacob and Madeleine know they cannot stay in New York. The gossip is too vicious. The judgment is too public. So they do what wealthy people do when society turns against them. They leave the country. They spend months traveling through Europe. They tour Egypt. They wait for the scandal to fade. By early 1912, Madeleine is pregnant. They decide it is time to return home. The baby should be born in America. They book passage on a ship making its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. The ship is called Titanic. The night everything changed. April the 10th, 1912. Cherbourg, France. John Jacob Astor and Madeleine board the Titanic as the wealthiest passengers on the ship. Their suite is on sea deck. They travel with an entourage, John Jacob's valet, Victor Robbins, Madeleine's maid, Rosalie Baidois, her nurse, Caroline Undres. They also bring their Airedale terrier, a dog named Kitty. The Titanic is the largest moving object ever built by human hands. It displaces 46,000 tons. It is 882 feet long. The first-class accommodations are designed to resemble a floating palace, carved oak. Gilt mirrors, crystal chandeliers, the dining room seats over 500 people. The gymnasium has electric horses and electric camels for exercise. There is a swimming pool, a squash court, a Turkish bath. John Jacob Astor is worth approximately $87 million. In 1912. This is an incomprehensible sum. It is more than the gross domestic product of some countries. He is not just wealthy. He is one of the wealthiest human beings alive. He boards the Titanic carrying a gold pocket watch. It is expensive but not ostentatious. It keeps perfect time. Vincent is at Harvard. He is a sophomore. He is 20 years old. He does not know his father is sailing home. Or perhaps he does, and simply does not care. His relationship with Madeleine is cold. She is a teenager playing at being his mother. He resents her. He resents his father for marrying her. He resents the scandal that has made his family name a subject for cartoonists and gossips. He is 20 years old and angry and alone at Harvard, and he does not know that his life is about to change completely. April 14th, 1912. 11:40 in the evening. The Titanic strikes an iceberg in the North Atlantic. The collision happens at roughly 22.5 knots. The iceberg tears a series of openings along the starboard side below the waterline. Water begins pouring into the forward compartments. John Jacob Astor is in his suite when it happens. The impact is not dramatic, a slight shudder, a grinding sound. Many passengers do not even wake. But John Jacob understands ships. He has owned yachts. He has sailed for decades. He goes on deck to investigate. He sees ice scattered across the forward well deck. He sees crew members moving with increasing urgency. He returns to his suite and tells Madeleine to dress warmly. By midnight, it is clear the ship is sinking. The lifeboats are being loaded. Women and children first. This is the protocol. This is what men of a certain class believe to be honorable. John Jacob helps Madeleine into Lifeboat 4. He helps her maid Rosalie and her nurse Caroline. He ensures they are seated safely. Then he steps back. Madeleine is pregnant. She is 18 years old. She is terrified. John Jacob asks an officer if he may accompany his wife. Given her condition, the officer refuses, women and children only. John Jacob does not argue. He steps back from the lifeboat. He gives up his seat. Other men stand with him on the deck. John Borland Thayer, a railroad executive. Harry Elkins Widener, whose mother will later endow a library at Harvard in his memory. Arthur Ryerson, another wealthy man traveling with his family. They wait. They smoke cigars. They watch the lifeboats being lowered into the dark water. The ship's band plays ragtime in the first-class lounge. Then they play hymns. At 2:20 in the morning on April 15th, 1912, the Titanic breaks apart and sinks. 1,517 people perish. John Jacob Astor is among them, his valet, Victor Robbins, the Airedale terrier, Kitty. Most of the men in first class, most in second class, nearly all in third class. Madeleine survives. Her maid survives. Her nurse survives. 8 days later, a cable ship called the Mackay Bennett recovers John Jacob Astor's body from the Atlantic. He is identified by the initials sewn into his jacket and by the gold watch found in his pocket. The watch has stopped at 2:20 in the morning, the exact moment the ship went under. Vincent Astor is at Harvard when the telegram arrives. His father is dead. He has inherited everything. The estate is valued at $87 million. Vincent receives $69 million directly. The rest is divided among other family members and charitable bequests. But the bulk, the empire, the properties, the responsibilities falls to Vincent. He is 20 years old. He has not finished his sophomore year. He will never finish it. He drops out of Harvard immediately. What is the point of studying when you have just inherited one of the largest fortunes in America? What is the point of preparing for a career when you already control hotels? Real estate. Investments worth more than most people will see in 100 lifetimes. Vincent returns to New York. He takes possession of the St. Regis Hotel, which his father built in 1904. He takes possession of the Knickerbocker Hotel. He takes possession of Ferncliff, the family's 2,800-acre estate in Rhinebeck, where his father was born, where his grandfather bred horses, where the family has summered for generations. He takes possession of apartment buildings, office buildings, warehouses, land parcels scattered across Manhattan. He takes possession of investments in railroads, in banks, in a dozen industries his father cultivated over decades. And he takes possession of his father's gold watch. It sits in a box with other personal effects. The watch that stopped at 2:20 in the morning. The watch that was in his father's pocket when the water closed over his head. Vincent picks it up. He holds it. He decides to keep it. Every morning for the next 47 years. He will slide this watch into his pocket. Every night. He will remove it and place it beside his bed. He will never have it repaired. He will never let the second hand move again. The watch becomes his companion, his reminder, his inheritance more tangible than money. 4 months after the Titanic sinks, on August the 14th, 1912, Madeline Astor gives birth to a son. She names him John Jacob Astor VI. Everyone calls him Jakey. Jakey will grow up knowing that his father drowned before he was born. He will grow up in the shadow of his half-brother, Vincent, who controls the fortune their father left behind. He will grow up believing he has a claim to the Astor name, the Astor legacy. Vincent will grow up hating him, not for anything Jakey does, not for any fault of his character. Vincent will hate Jakey because he is Madeline's son, because his existence is proof that his father loved a teenager more than he loved dignity. Because Jakey represents everything Vincent resents about the scandal, the gossip, the humiliation of having a stepmother younger than himself. Vincent's hatred will last 47 years. It will outlive Madeleine. It will outlive his own marriages, his own attempts at happiness. It will last until the moment he signs his final will and leaves Jakey absolutely nothing. But on this day in 1912, that is still decades away. Vincent is 20 years old. He has $69 million. He has hotels and estates and investments he barely understands. He has a stopped watch in his pocket. He has no degree, no training, no experience running anything. And he has exactly what a broken man needs: unlimited resources and no one to stop him from proving he is not the mistake his mother always said he was. Chapter 2. The Heir Who Tried. The letter. 1916. At 25, Vincent has been the richest young man in America for 4 years. He has sold some of the family's slum properties. He has built a housing complex in the Bronx with land set aside for a children's playground. He has transformed a valuable Harlem property into another playground instead of building apartments that would generate rent. This is unusual behavior for an Astor. The family has been known for generations as slum landlords. They own hundreds of tenement buildings across Manhattan. The buildings are profitable precisely because the Astors spend almost nothing on maintenance. Broken stairs stay broken. Leaking roofs stay leaking. Families pack into airless rooms and pay rent every month to men who never see how they live. Vincent has started to change this. Slowly, quietly. He sells off the worst properties. He refuses to buy more. When reporters ask why, he speaks vaguely about social responsibility, but he is still building himself a mansion. He is still spending money on luxuries. He is still an Astor, still insulated by wealth from the realities most Americans face every day. And then a letter arrives. Upton Sinclair is the most famous muckraking journalist in America. 9 years earlier, he published The Jungle, an exposé of the meatpacking industry so visceral, so detailed in its descriptions of diseased meat and broken workers that it forced the federal government to pass the Pure Food and Drug Act. Sinclair exposed what powerful men wanted hidden. He made a career of making wealthy people uncomfortable. Now he turns his attention to Vincent Astor. Sinclair writes an open letter. He addresses it directly to Vincent. He requests that Vincent support the socialist cause and help the poor. He points out that Vincent is erecting million-dollar estates without benefiting the rest of society. He suggests that inheriting a fortune is not the same as earning it. He implies not subtly that Vincent is a parasite living off the labor of thousands of people who will never own anything. Sinclair sends this letter to half a dozen newspapers: the New York Times, the Herald, the Tribune, the major publications that shape public opinion in New York and beyond. 5 of them refuse to print it. Only one newspaper publishes Sinclair's letter, the New York Call. A socialist paper with a circulation of roughly 8,000 readers. The letter appears on the front page. It is not accompanied by commentary or rebuttal. Just Sinclair's words, calling Vincent Astor by name, by inheritance, by implication a man who takes and gives nothing back. Vincent reads it. Everyone in his circle reads it. The New York Call might have a small circulation, but the people who matter pay attention when Upton Sinclair speaks. Vincent writes a reply. His response is detailed, over 1,000 words. He explains his philanthropic efforts. He defends inherited wealth as a tool for social good when used properly. He argues that private citizens can achieve more than government programs. He presents himself as a responsible steward of his father's fortune, not a careless heir squandering money on frivolities. He sends his reply to the same half a dozen newspapers that received Sinclair's letter. Every single one publishes it. Most put it on the front page. The New York Times runs the full text. The Herald runs the full text. Even the New York, called the socialist paper that printed Sinclair's original attack, publishes Vincent's response in its entirety. Upton Sinclair watches this happen and recognizes it for what it is. Years later, in his book, The Brass Check, A Study of American Journalism, Sinclair will describe this exchange as a scientific demonstration of bias of the media in favor of the wealthy. He will point out that the papers gave Astor complete coverage, often on the front page, while refusing to print the letter that prompted the response. Except for the Call, they declined to publish Sinclair's accusation, but all of them rushed to publish Vincent's defense. The message is clear: wealthy men get to speak. Critics of wealthy men get silence. This is how power protects itself in 1916. Not through censorship. Exactly. Through selective amplification, through decisions made in editorial offices about whose voice matters and whose does not. Vincent wins the exchange. His reputation remains intact. Sinclair's criticism reaches only the people already inclined to agree with it. Vincent's approach shifts after the letter. The year after Sinclair's public challenge, Vincent accelerates his sale of slum properties. He increases his donations to social causes. He funds more housing projects. He builds more playgrounds. He hires architects to design decent homes for working families instead of profitable death traps. A family biographer will later write, Vincent Astor was a hitherto unknown phenomenon in America, an Astor with a highly developed social conscience. The question is whether that social conscience was always there, waiting to be expressed, or whether Upton Sinclair embarrassed it into existence. Did Vincent change because he wanted to be better, or because someone publicly called him a parasite and he needed to prove them wrong? Coincidence is not causation, but timing is everything. Vincent is 25 years old. He has just been challenged in public by a man whose words have toppled industries. He has just seen how easily the press dismisses criticism of the wealthy while amplifying their defenses. Perhaps he learns that money can buy many things, including the silence of newspapers. Or perhaps he learns that Sinclair was right, that inheriting everything means owing something. Either way, the playgrounds get built, the slum buildings get sold. Vincent begins the slow process of becoming the kind of Astor no one expected. The Wedding Curse. April 30th, 1914, Newport, Rhode Island. Vincent Astor marries Helen Dinsmore Huntington at her family's estate. She is 21 years old. He is 22. They have known each other since childhood. Both families have estates in Rhinebeck. They are the kind of match that makes sense to people who measure compatibility in acres and ancestry. Helen is not particularly beautiful. Vincent is not particularly charming. But they share the world of summer cottages that are actually mansions. Of servants who know not to speak unless spoken to. Of social seasons and yacht races and all the small rituals that mark the boundaries of acceptable society. The wedding is elegant, small by Astor standards, but still elaborate by any normal measure. Flowers imported from 3 states, a reception for 200 guests, champagne from France, music performed by a string quartet that usually plays for the Boston Symphony. Everything is perfect except Vincent. On his wedding day, Vincent contracts the mumps. He is visibly ill during the ceremony. His face is swollen. He has a fever. Guests whisper about whether the wedding should be postponed, but the Astors do not postpone weddings. Vincent stands at the altar. He speaks his vows. He kisses his bride. The mumps will pass within 2 weeks. The fever will break. The swelling will recede. Vincent will recover completely. Except for one thing. The mumps render him permanently sterile. This is not rare in 1914. Mumps in adult men frequently causes orchitis inflammation of the testicles that can destroy the ability to produce sperm. Medical science understands this complication. There is no treatment. Once the damage is done, it is permanent. Vincent and Helen will never have children. Whether they try, whether they ever attempt to conceive before discovering the impossibility is not recorded. What is recorded is the outcome: 26 years of marriage. No children, no heirs from Vincent's body. The Astor line continues through his half-brother Jakey, the son Vincent hates, but from Vincent himself. Nothing. Helen may not mind. Her close friend Glenroy Westcott, a novelist who moves in the same artistic circles, will later describe her in his unpublished diaries as a grand, old-fashioned lesbian. Westcott is himself openly gay. He knows Helen intimately. His assessment is not gossip. It is observation from someone who recognizes a kindred spirit navigating a world that demands heterosexual performance. If Westcott is correct, then Helen's marriage to Vincent may have been exactly what she needed: social legitimacy, financial security, and a husband unlikely to demand physical intimacy. Contemporary sources, discreet, careful, never stating facts directly, suggest that the marriage is never consummated. Whether this is due to Vincent's sterility, Helen's sexuality, mutual lack of attraction, or simple indifference is unclear. What is clear is that they stay married for 26 years, and in those 26 years, they live largely separate lives before they settle into that pattern. The war intervenes. Vincent joined the Naval Reserve Force in December of 1915, months before America entered the Great War. He is commissioned as an ensign when the United States declares war on Germany in April of 1917. Vincent is called to active duty immediately. He serves as executive officer aboard the armed yacht USS Aphrodite. The Aphrodite is not a warship in the traditional sense. She is a converted luxury yacht, pressed into service to escort convoys across the Atlantic. Her job is to watch for German submarines and protect merchant vessels carrying supplies to the Allied forces. Vincent's father drowned when a ship sank. Now Vincent serves on a ship sailing waters where German U-boats hunt for targets. The irony is not lost on him. On January 10th, 1919, the Aphrodite strikes a mine in the Atlantic. The explosion tears through the hull. Water pours into the lower compartments. The crew scrambles to assess damage and seal breaches. For several hours, it is unclear whether the ship will stay afloat. Vincent survives. The Aphrodite survives. They limp back to port. Vincent is promoted to lieutenant. He receives commendations for his service. When the war ends, he returns to New York as a decorated veteran who did his duty without seeking glory or publicity. Helen also serves during the war. She works with the YMCA in France, providing support services to American soldiers far from home. She is in Bordeaux for months. She and Vincent are separated by an ocean, both serving, both doing what people of their class believe is honorable. Perhaps this is the closest they ever come to genuine partnership. Two people, each contributing to something larger than themselves, each occupying their own space without demanding intimacy from the other. The war ends. They return to their marriage. They return to their separate lives within the same household. What money built? 1918. Forbes magazine publishes its first list of America's richest people. Vincent Astor appears at number 12. His net worth is estimated at $75 million in today's currency. Adjusted for inflation, this equals roughly $1.56 billion. He is 26 years old. He owns the St. Regis Hotel, the Beaux-Arts masterpiece his father built in 1904 on 5th Avenue and 55th Street. The St. Regis was designed to set new standards for luxury. It was the first hotel in New York with central air conditioning in every room, the first with ensuite bathrooms in every guest suite, the first with a telephone in every room connected to a central switchboard that operated 24 hours. The building itself is a statement. 18 stories of limestone and brick. A facade decorated with mansard roofs and dormer windows. Interiors designed to resemble a European palace, Louis XVI furniture. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, silk wallpaper. But the St. Regis is not designed only for billionaires. Workers who knew the hotel describe it as not a place for billionaires only. Anyone with good taste and modest means can afford a meal in the restaurant or a drink in the bar. The St. Regis aspires to be elegant rather than merely expensive. Vincent inherits this building in 1912. He takes pride in it. His father built it. His father's vision shaped every detail. Maintaining the St. Regis is maintaining his father's legacy. Then comes October 29th, 1929. The stock market collapses. Fortunes evaporate in hours. Banks fail. Businesses shutter. The Great Depression begins. The exact details of what Vincent loses are not fully documented. What is documented is the outcome: he loses control of the St. Regis Hotel. The mechanism is not entirely clear. Some sources suggest foreclosure. Others mention default. The most common explanation is that he lost it through mortgage default. Though whose default, Vincent's or the mortgage holder's, remains ambiguous, what is certain is that by the early 1930s, Vincent no longer controls the hotel his father built. For a man whose entire identity is bound up in his father's legacy, this is more than a financial loss. It is a failure. It is proof that he cannot protect what his father created. It is evidence that he is not equal to the responsibility he inherited. The silence in the historical record around these years is notable. Vincent sells properties. He restructures his holdings. He does what wealthy men do during depressions. He survives by being more ruthless than the people around him who cannot survive. But what does he do with his tenement properties? Does he raise rents to cover his losses? Does he squeeze desperate families to keep his own empire intact? Or does he hold rents steady and lose money while others suffer? The records do not say, and the silence itself is a kind of answer. When wealthy men behave generously, they ensure that generosity is documented, donations are announced, charitable acts are publicized, good deeds become part of the public record because good deeds enhance reputation. When wealthy men behave cruelly, the documentation tends to disappear. Rent increases are not announced in newspapers. Evictions are handled by managers whose names appear on no letterhead. Cruelty leaves less evidence than kindness. Vincent's behavior during the Depression years is undocumented. This may mean nothing, or it may mean everything. What is documented is that in 1935, Vincent regains control of the St. Regis Hotel. The phrasing used in historical accounts is specific. He regained it through a mortgage default. If Vincent had defaulted, he would have lost the building permanently. The fact that he regains it suggests the mortgage holder defaulted, allowing Vincent to reclaim the property. This is a neat trick available only to people with extraordinary resources. If you lose a property but retain enough money to wait, eventually the person who took it from you may stumble, and when they stumble, you step back in. Vincent moves quickly once he regains control. He hires Anne Tiffany, a prominent decorator, to renovate and modernize the interiors. He places his brother-in-law, Prince Serge Obolensky, on the executive board. Obolensky is Russian aristocracy, cultured and charming, exactly the kind of person who understands luxury hospitality. Within 2 years, the St. Regis is profitable again. Vincent has saved his father's masterpiece. He has proved he can protect what matters. He has survived the Depression and come out on the other side still wealthy, still powerful, still in control. But the question remains, what did he do to the tenants in those tenement buildings during the years when he was bleeding money? When the St. Regis was slipping away and he needed every dollar to hold his empire together, did he squeeze them or did he protect them? The records are silent. And sometimes silence is the loudest answer of all. The marriage that wasn't. 26 years. That is how long Vincent and Helen Astor stay married. From April of 1914 to September of 1940. They share a name, a household, and virtually nothing else. Contemporary sources careful, discreet, never stating facts directly suggest the marriage is never consummated. The mumps rendered Vincent sterile. But sterility does not prevent physical intimacy. It simply prevents conception. If the marriage remains unconsummated, it is because one or both parties chose it that way. Helen spends her time on music. She serves on the board of the Metropolitan Opera. She owns 2 boxes at the Met, not 1, but 2, so she can invite enough guests to fill 18 seats. She supports the New York Philharmonic. She attends rehearsals and opening nights. She cultivates composers and conductors. Vincent spends his time at sea. In the early 1930s, he establishes an estate in Bermuda. The property includes a private narrow-gauge railway, a miniature train system connecting different parts of the grounds. Vincent has always loved trains. His father loved trains. The Astor fortune is partly built on railroad investments. Building a private railway in Bermuda is both hobby and homage. He commissions a new yacht in 1927. He names it Noor Mahal, the same name as the yacht his father owned. The yacht where Vincent and his father spent their happiest times together. The new Noor Mahal is larger, more luxurious, more technologically advanced. But the name is what matters. The name is memory made physical. Vincent sails for months. He takes the Noor Mahal down the East Coast, through the Caribbean, across the Atlantic. He invites friends, occasionally business associates, fellow yachtsmen, anyone who can tolerate his awkward silences and sudden dark moods, but often he sails alone, or with only crew for company. Helen does not join these voyages. She has her music. He has his water. They have their separate lives. By 1940, whatever fragile understanding held the marriage together has dissolved completely. On September the 5th, 1940, Helen Huntington Astor receives a divorce decree in Cody, Wyoming. The grounds are mental cruelty. She has been married to Vincent for 26 years. She files for divorce only days after Vincent informs her that he wants one. The divorce is swift, uncontested. The financial settlement is not disclosed publicly. Helen is wealthy in her own right. Her family has money, and Vincent presumably provides enough that she will never face economic hardship. 3 weeks later, on September the 28th, 1940, Vincent marries Mary Benedict Cushing. Everyone calls her Minnie. Minnie is 34 years old. Vincent is 48. She is one of 3 Cushing sisters, Minnie, Betsy, and Babe, famous in social circles for their beauty, their marriages, and their influence on fashion and taste. Betsy married James Roosevelt, the eldest son of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. Babe will marry William Paley, the founder of CBS. Minnie has been Vincent's mistress for years. Her sister Betsy introduced them at a White House party. The affair was discreet but persistent. Everyone who mattered knew, including Helen. The marriage to Minnie makes sense on paper. She is sophisticated. She is well-connected. She moves in the same social circles Vincent occupies. She has impeccable taste and knows how to run a household that entertains senators and artists and European aristocrats. But the differences between them, differences that went unnoticed during their courtship, come glaringly to the surface after marriage. Vincent is somber, awkward, antisocial. He prefers silence to conversation. He dislikes parties. He spends months at sea to avoid having to attend dinners where people expect him to be charming. Minnie is gay, blithe, energetic. She loves hosting salons. She cultivates artists and musicians. She thrives on conversation and laughter and the performance of being delightful. Within months, they are spending most of their time apart. Vincent sails. Minnie establishes a glittering salon in Manhattan, inviting composers like Leonard Bernstein, playwrights like Tennessee Williams, anyone interesting and creative and willing to be entertained. Rumors circulate that the marriage is never consummated, that Minnie, like Helen before her, may prefer women, that Vincent is either unable or unwilling to perform as a husband in the physical sense. The rumors are impossible to verify, but the pattern is clear. 2 marriages, neither producing children, both characterized by long separations and separate social lives. Perhaps Vincent is simply asexual, perhaps his childhood trauma, the closets. The cruelty, the constant message that he is fundamentally unlovable has left him unable to experience physical intimacy. Or perhaps he marries women who will not demand it. Women who have their own reasons for accepting a marriage that exists in name only. Helen, according to her friend Glenway Westcott, was a lesbian. Minnie, according to gossip and her later choices, may have been as well. Both women had reasons to want the social protection marriage offered. Both women could have accepted a wealthy, famous husband who left them alone. Meanwhile, Helen moves on quickly. On April the 15th, 1941, exactly 1 year to the day after the Titanic sank. Exactly 29 years later, she marries Lytle Buchanan Hull. Hull is a Florida real estate broker. He was a friend of both Helen and Vincent. He had frequently joined them on yacht cruises aboard the Norma Hall. He had been present during those long months when Vincent sailed and Helen endured, and both pretended they had a marriage. Now Helen marries him. She marries him on the anniversary of the night Vincent's father drowned. This is either coincidence or the cruelest possible statement. Knowing Helen, knowing her taste for precision, her attention to social symbolism, it is probably not coincidence. Vincent is now married to Minnie. Helen is married to Hull. They have each moved on to new arrangements that will, presumably, make them happier than the previous 26 years. But Vincent and Minnie are not happy. The differences between them are too fundamental. She wants culture and conversation. He wants silence and salt water. She wants to host and shine. He wants to disappear. They stay married for 13 years. 13 years of separate lives. Separate interests, separate worlds occupying the same legal contract. And then Minnie asks for something Vincent is not prepared to give. She asks him to destroy his father's house. Burning the past. The mansion at Ferncliff was built in 1853. William Backhouse Astor Jr. Vincent's grandfather purchased several small farms a few miles south of Rokeby, his mother's estate. He consolidated the properties and built an Italianate Victorian mansion overlooking the Hudson River. The house had turrets, sprawling porches, marble fireplaces, high ceilings, elaborate woodwork, everything that announced wealth and permanence. John Jacob Astor IV was born in that house in 1864. He grew up in those rooms. He learned to ride horses in the stables his father built. He sailed the Hudson from the boathouse his father maintained. Ferncliff was his childhood home. Vincent inherited it in 1912. For nearly 3 decades, he has maintained it as his father maintained it. The house is a shrine, not to his father specifically, but to the idea of continuity, to the belief that great families endure by preserving what previous generations built. Minnie hates it. She calls the mansion an outdated fire trap. She says it reminds her of Vincent's previous marriage to Helen. She says the house is too old, too expensive to heat, too impractical for modern living. She wants it gone. Vincent resists at first. This is his father's birthplace. This is history. This is legacy. But Minnie persists. And Vincent awkward. Lonely Vincent, who has never been loved except by a father who drowned, wants to please his wife. He wants Minnie to be happy. He wants someone to choose to stay with him. So he agrees. Between 1947 and 1948, the exact date is not recorded. The Victorian mansion at Ferncliff is demolished. Some sources say it was deliberately burned as a form of controlled demolition. Others say it was conventionally torn down. Either way, the result is the same. The house where John Jacob Astor IV was born ceases to exist. The staff had been dismissed the week before. Furniture was sold at auction. Architectural elements were salvaged by dealers who specialize in such things. The house was emptied before it was destroyed. Did Vincent watch? Did he stand at a distance and observe as the building his grandfather built, the building where his father was born, came down? The records do not say. But one biographer notes that the demolition of the house in which his father had been born only contributed to Vincent's antisocial behavior and depression. Vincent is 56 when the mansion is destroyed 14 years from his death. In 1948, he commissions a replacement, a neoclassical brick tea house overlooking the Hudson. It is elegant in a sterile way, clean lines, modern proportions, none of the Victorian excess of the original mansion. Vincent and Minnie traveled to it via the miniature railroad he built connecting various buildings on the estate. But the tea house is not a home. It is a structure. It is architecture without memory. The real residence at Ferncliff is now Astor Courts, the converted sports pavilion his father commissioned in 1902. The building Stanford White designed as a pleasure palace, complete with indoor tennis courts and a swimming pool and squash courts and a bowling alley. The squash courts are converted into a library. The vast interior spaces are divided into rooms. The building that was meant for entertainment becomes the place where Vincent lives. He has destroyed his father's birthplace and moved into his father's playroom. The irony is too obvious to ignore. Vincent has spent his entire life trying to prove he is worthy of his father's legacy. And now he lives in the one building at Ferncliff that was never meant to be taken seriously. The building where wealthy men came to play. Minnie gets what she wants. The old mansion is gone. The new arrangements are more to her taste. But Vincent continues to sink. His moods darken. He spends more time sailing alone. He withdraws from social obligations. He becomes, by all accounts, increasingly difficult to be around. 13 years after their marriage, Minnie will divorce him. She will tell friends she cannot stand living with a very big, now getting old baby who always had to have it his way. But before that divorce, before the mansion burns, there is one brief period when Vincent matters for reasons that have nothing to do with inherited wealth. A world war is about to demand everything from everyone, even him. Chapter 3. The Spy Who Mattered, 1940-1945. The Room, summer, 1940. Europe is already burning. France has fallen to Nazi Germany in 6 weeks. The British Expeditionary Force has evacuated from Dunkirk. Britain stands alone. Enduring nightly bombing raids over London, America has not yet entered the war. President Franklin Roosevelt promises to keep American boys out of European conflicts, but everyone who pays attention understands the promise cannot hold. The question is not if America enters the war, but when. Vincent Astor decides he will not wait. He contacts Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal. He contacts Admiral Adolphus Andrews, commander of the 3rd Naval District. He makes an offer that seems absurd on its surface, but makes perfect sense when you understand what Vincent needs. His yacht Nourmahal, the steel-hulled vessel he commissioned in 1927. The ship that cost over $12 million in today's currency will be loaned to the United States Navy for $1 per year. Not $1 per day, not $1 per month, $1 for 12 months of service. The Navy accepts immediately. The Nourmahal becomes a floating weather station. Her job is to coordinate the movement of ships, troops, and supplies across the Atlantic. She monitors wind patterns, ocean currents, atmospheric pressure. She radios data to shore stations that compile reports for convoy commanders. The information she gathers helps transport vessels avoid storms, helps warships choose efficient routes, helps convoys evade German U-boat wolf packs hunting in the mid-Atlantic. Weather data saves lives. Vincent's yacht, the pleasure palace where he escapes his failures on land, becomes a tool that helps win a war. But Vincent's service goes deeper than lending one yacht. He is recruited into a secret Navy intelligence network. The operation has no official name in military documents. People who know about it simply call it the Room. The Room is not a physical place. It is a network of wealthy men, men with yachts, with social connections, with access to financial and political information that ordinary intelligence officers cannot obtain. These men move in circles where corporate executives discuss shipping schedules over lunch, where foreign diplomats attend dinner parties, where information flows through conversation rather than official channels. Vincent becomes one of these men. He uses his yacht for more than weather monitoring. He uses it for intelligence gathering. He watches ports along the East Coast. He notes unusual ship movements. He reports suspicious activities to naval intelligence. He becomes what historians will later call a yachting spy. The work is not glamorous. Most intelligence work is not. It consists of watching, noting, reporting, long hours of observing nothing unusual, occasional moments when something appears that might be significant. But it is work that matters. It is service that contributes to something larger than Vincent's personal comfort or social status. For the first time since inheriting his fortune at age 20, Vincent has a job that would exist whether or not his name was Astor. On December the 13th, 1940. Vincent receives a more specific assignment. He has inside access to Chase National Bank. The Astor family has maintained accounts with Chase for generations. Vincent's wealth gives him automatic entry to executive offices. He attends meetings where financial officers discuss international transactions. He sees information that ordinary citizens never access. Naval intelligence asks him to use that access. Every week, without exception, Vincent reports Soviet account balances at Chase Bank to the United States Treasury. This is not casual bookkeeping. The Soviet Union, fighting for survival against Nazi invasion, receives massive American aid under the Lend-Lease program. Billions of dollars in weapons, vehicles, food, raw materials flow to the USSR. Tracking Soviet financial movements helps American officials understand how that aid is being used, where money goes, whether funds are diverted to purposes Congress did not authorize. Vincent begins filing these reports on December 13th, 1940. He continues in an unbroken sequence through 1945, 5 years of weekly intelligence reports. Occasionally, when Vincent is unavailable, substitutes file the paperwork, but the surveillance never stops. This becomes the most consistent thing Vincent Astor does in his entire adult life. More consistent than his marriages, 3 attempts, 3 failures. More consistent than his business dealings, properties bought and sold, fortunes fluctuating. More consistent than anything except carrying his father's stopped watch every day for 47 years. For 5 years. Vincent matters because of what he knows and what he reports. Not because of what he inherited, not because his great-great-grandfather arrived from Germany with ambition and instinct. Because Vincent himself does work that contributes to victory. The work is secret. No newspapers report it. No society pages mention it. When Vincent attends parties, which he does rarely, reluctantly, people see only an awkward, wealthy man who inherited too much and achieved too little. They do not see the intelligence officer filing weekly reports that help track billions of dollars in wartime aid. Vincent prefers it this way. He has spent his entire life watched, judged, measured against his father's legacy. The intelligence work happens in shadow. No one watches. No one judges. He simply does the work and files the reports and serves. In early 1942, Vincent makes a suggestion to Navy officials. Fishing boats operate all along the Atlantic coast. Commercial vessels, privately owned, crewed by men who know the water. These boats go out every day. They see things. They observe ship movements, unusual activities, vessels that do not belong where they appear. Why not equip these fishing boats with radios so they can report German submarine sightings? The Navy adopts the suggestion immediately. The program expands quickly. Dozens of fishing boats receive radio equipment. Captains receive instructions on what to report and how to transmit without revealing their positions to enemy listeners. One of the boats equipped with military radio is the Pilar Ernest Hemingway's fishing yacht, operating out of Havana, Cuba. Hemingway volunteers his boat for the program. He is 42 years old. He is drinking heavily. His writing comes in fits and starts. His marriage to Martha Gellhorn is collapsing. He needs purpose as desperately as Vincent needs purpose. So Hemingway patrols Cuban waters with a radio, binoculars, and a crew armed with weapons they hope never to use. He watches for German submarines that may be using Caribbean islands for resupply. He files reports. He sees nothing of consequence. The U-boats operate farther north, hunting convoys in the Atlantic shipping lanes, but Hemingway serves. He contributes. He does something beyond writing novels and cultivating his public persona as a man of action. Two men, both with famous names that open doors and create expectations, both fundamentally broken by different traumas, both trying to serve something larger than their own damaged selves. Vincent operates from New York and Washington. Hemingway operates from Havana. They may never meet. Vincent gives suggestions that become orders. Hemingway follows those orders. Two fragments of the same intelligence apparatus, separated by 1,000 miles and utterly different temperaments, but connected by the same desperate need to matter for reasons that have nothing to do with inheritance or fame or the accidents of birth that made them who they are. On June 18th, 1942, the Navy promotes Vincent to captain. The date of rank is retroactive administrative formality to ensure his pay and privileges align with his new responsibilities. Vincent wears the uniform when required. He attends classified briefings. He files endless reports. He does the unglamorous work of wartime intelligence paperwork, data analysis, meetings where men review information that may or may not prove useful. The work is tedious. The work matters. Both things are true simultaneously for his service. Vincent will eventually receive 6 medals: Navy Commendation Medal for meritorious service, Naval Reserve Medal with Star for active duty, World War II Victory Medal for his service aboard the Aphrodite when it struck a mine, American Defense Service Medal, American Campaign Medal, World War II Victory Medal. The medals accumulate in a drawer somewhere. Vincent does not display them. He does not mention them at parties. The medals matter less than the work itself, less than the knowledge that for 4 years he was useful. And then the war ends. August 1945. Germany has surrendered in May. Japan surrenders in August after atomic bombs destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war is over. The intelligence networks demobilize. The yachting spies return to being merely yachtsmen. Vincent returns his uniform to the closet. He returns to being simply an Astor. At 53, he has 14 years remaining. Those 14 years will be spent trying to recapture what these 4 years felt like. Being necessary, being valued for actions rather than inheritance, mattering. He will fail, because the thing he was useful for total war, requiring total mobilization of American society, is over. And in peacetime, a wealthy man with social connections is just a wealthy man with social connections. The skills that made him valuable in wartime have no application when ships no longer need convoy routes and the Soviet Union transitions from ally to adversary and Chase Bank returns to being merely a bank rather than an intelligence asset. The room closes. The weekly reports to Treasury stop. The purpose ends. Vincent goes back to sea aboard the Norma Hall, but now he is simply sailing, not serving, not contributing, just moving across water, because moving across water is what he has always done when he cannot bear to remain on land, where people judge him and find him wanting. The war gave him 4 years of purpose. The peace takes it away. 14 years remain. 14 years to figure out what a man does when the only time he felt truly useful has passed and will never return. Chapter 4. The Last Try, 1948 to 1959. Finding Replacement Parts, 1948. Vincent Astor is 56 years old. He establishes the Vincent Astor Foundation. The mission statement is brief: alleviating human misery. 3 words, no elaboration, no specific causes listed, no detailed program outlined. Just the broad mandate to reduce suffering wherever it appears. Perhaps Vincent recognizes his own misery in the phrasing. Perhaps he understands that wealth cannot purchase happiness, but might purchase relief for people whose unhappiness has simpler causes than his own. Poverty can be addressed with money. Hunger can be solved with food. Homelessness can be fixed with housing. The kind of misery that comes from being locked in closets by your mother, that kind cannot be fixed with charitable donations. But he tries anyway. The foundation begins making grants. Small ones at first, a few $1,000s to organizations Vincent trusts or has heard about through social connections. The grants go to hospitals, orphanages, schools. The amounts are trivial compared to Vincent's total wealth, but they establish a pattern. They create the structure for something larger. Vincent is still married to Minnie Cushing. They have been married for 8 years. They live mostly separate lives. Minnie hosts her glittering salons in Manhattan, Leonard Bernstein playing piano, Tennessee Williams reading from works in progress, artists and composers and theater people who find Minnie charming and Vincent unbearable. Vincent sails. He spends months at sea. He returns to find Minnie has redecorated something or hosted someone or made plans that do not include him. By 1953, whatever held the marriage together has dissolved completely. They divorce in September, but Vincent makes a condition that reveals everything about how he understands relationships. Minnie must find him a replacement wife before he will agree to end the marriage. This is not a joke. This is not metaphor. Vincent literally requires that his divorcing wife locate and vet a suitable candidate to become his next wife. Minnie accepts the task. Perhaps she feels guilty. Perhaps she simply wants the divorce completed. Perhaps she understands that Vincent, left alone, will sink into depression so profound that even his money cannot pull him out. Her first suggestion is Janet Newbold Ryan Stewart Bush. Janet has just divorced James Smith Bush, the second brother of Prescott Bush, father of the future president, George Herbert Walker Bush. Janet is wealthy in her own right, socially prominent, recently available. Minnie arranges an introduction. Vincent makes his proposal. He explains, with the blunt honesty of a man who has given up on romance, that he is not well, though only in his early 60s. He does not expect to live much longer. His health is declining. His mood is darker than it has ever been. When he dies, which will be soon, she will inherit millions. This is Vincent's pitch. Not love, not companionship, not even friendship. Just a transaction. Endure me for a few years. Inherit a fortune. Janet Bush looks at him. She considers the offer. Then she replies with startling candor. I don't even like you. Vincent persists. He emphasizes the money, the estates, the social position, all the things that usually matter to people. Janet asks a follow-up question. What if you do live? What if you do not die quickly? What if I am trapped in a marriage to a man I do not like for 10 years, 20 years? What then? Vincent has no answer. Janet declines. Minnie tries again. Her second suggestion is Roberta Brooke Russell. Brooke is 51 years old. She has been married twice before. Her first husband was John Dryden Cusa, a wealthy man, an abusive marriage that ended in divorce. Her second husband was Charles Henry Marshall, a stockbroker, a good man, a marriage that ended when he died in 1952. Brooke has one son from her first marriage, Anthony Dryden Marshall, who changed his name to match his stepfather's. Anthony is 29 years old in 1953. He will become important later. Brooke has been working as an editor at House and Garden magazine. She is not destitute. She is not desperate, but she is also not as wealthy as Vincent Astor. Few people are. Minnie introduces them. Vincent makes a similar proposition to the one he offered Janet Bush. He is honest about his health, his mood, his expectation of an early death. He offers wealth in exchange for companionship. Brooke, unlike Janet, accepts. On October 8th, 1953, just weeks after divorcing Minnie, Vincent marries Brooke Russell. He is 61 years old. She is 51. Neither is young. Neither harbors illusions about romance or passion. This is a practical arrangement, against all expectations. Something shifts. Brooke will later say he had a dreadful childhood and as a result had moments of deep melancholy. but I think I made him happy. That's what I set out to do. She describes her method. I'd literally dance with the dogs, sing and play the piano, and I would make him laugh, something no one had ever done before. No one had ever made Vincent laugh. Not his mother, who terrorized him. Not his father, who loved him but drowned when Vincent was 20. Not Helen, who spent 26 years married to him without ever touching him. Not Minnie, who found him unbearable and left. Brooke makes him laugh. She dances with the dogs. She sings. She plays piano. She does silly things that break through Vincent's armor of depression and awkwardness and self-loathing. She treats his wealth as irrelevant and his fame as boring and his dark moods as something to be managed rather than endured. Vincent calls her Pookie. For 6 years, they have something resembling happiness, or at least something resembling peace. Brooke joins him in running the Vincent Astor Foundation. They make decisions together about which organizations to support, which causes to fund. The foundation grows larger. The grants become more substantial. Vincent begins to understand that his money, the burden he inherited at 20, the weight that has crushed him for 40 years, might actually serve a purpose beyond proving he is not the failure his mother said he was, before Vincent dies. He tells Brooke something she will repeat many times in the decades that follow. Pookie, you are going to have a hell of a lot of fun running it. He means the foundation. He means the money. He means the opportunity to give away a fortune to people who need it more than he ever did. 6 years. That is all they have together. 6 years out of Vincent's 67 years of life. But they might be the only 6 years when Vincent is something close to happy. Those 6 years pass quickly. The last watch? Stop. February 3rd, 1959, 120 East End Avenue, Manhattan. Vincent Astor collapses in his apartment in the afternoon. Heart attack. He is 67 years old. The doctors arrive quickly. They do everything medical science can do in 1959. It is not enough. Vincent dies with his father's stopped watch in his pocket, the watch he has carried every single day for 47 years. His estate is valued at $127,377,021. The accountants have calculated to the penny. The will surprises almost everyone who knows Vincent. To Brooke, $2 million in cash, $60 million in trust, valuable real estate including their apartment, the bulk of his liquid wealth. To the Vincent Astor Foundation, everything else. Over $100 million, the entire remainder of the estate. To his half-brother, Jakey, nothing. Not $1, not one property, not even a personal item for sentimental value. Jakey is 46 years old. He has spent his entire life in Vincent's shadow. He has watched Vincent carry their father's watch, their father's legacy, their father's fortune. He has watched Vincent make decisions about properties that Jacob Astor IV built. He has watched Vincent control the family empire, while Jakey received nothing except the humiliation of being excluded. Now Vincent is dead, and Jakey inherits exactly what he has always received: nothing. Jakey contests the will immediately. He claims Vincent was mentally incompetent when he signed the final version in June of 1958. He points to Vincent's alcoholism, his depression, his declining health. He argues that Vincent was not in his right mind when he chose to leave Jakey out completely. Brooke insists otherwise. She says Vincent was clear, deliberate, fully aware of what he was doing. He wanted the money to serve the foundation. He wanted the fortune to help people. He did not want Jakey to have any of it. Jakey makes a statement that will be quoted in histories of the Astor family. Vincent had the legal, not the moral right to keep all the money. Legal versus moral. Rights versus fairness. The law versus what a brother should do for a brother. Vincent chose law over morality. He chose legal right over family obligation. He chose to give everything to charity and Brooke, rather than split anything with a half-brother he hated for 47 years. Jakey loses the legal challenge. The will stands. Vincent's decision holds. Brooke becomes one of the wealthiest widows in America. She becomes president of the Vincent Astor Foundation. She inherits not just money but purpose. Vincent has given her the job he promised she would enjoy. Vincent himself is first interred at Astor Courts, the converted pleasure pavilion at Ferncliff. The sports palace his father built that became Vincent's residence after he destroyed his father's actual house. He is buried on the property where he spent his last years, on land that has belonged to the Astor family since the 1850s. But Astor Courts will not remain in the family. Years later, when Brooke disposes of the property, donating it to the Catholic Archdiocese, selling off parcels, dividing the estate, she has Vincent reinterred at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, Sleepy Hollow, New York. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is where many wealthy New York families bury their dead. It is respectable. It is permanent. It is far from Ferncliff. Brooke will eventually be buried beside Vincent. When she dies in 2007 at age 105, she will be placed in the grave next to his. Her gravestone bears an epitaph she chose herself. "I had a wonderful life." 10 words, a summation of 105 years, an assertion that despite everything, despite 3 marriages, despite the elder abuse she will suffer at her son's hands, despite the complications and scandals and difficulties, her life was wonderful. Vincent's gravestone says nothing at all. No epitaph, no dates beyond birth and death, no description of who he was or what he did or how he should be remembered. Just his name, Vincent Astor, and silence. Perhaps there was nothing to say, or perhaps everything that could be said would be insufficient. He was born into everything. He tried to earn it anyway. He served in 2 wars. He married 3 women. He carried his father's watch for 47 years. He gave away a fortune before he died and left a larger fortune to be given away after. Was he happy Brooke made him laugh for 6 years? That might be the closest he came. His father's watch, still stopped at 2:20 in the morning, will remain with Vincent's personal effects until Brooke decides what to do with it. Eventually, it will be sold. In 2024, 65 years after Vincent's death, the watch will sell at auction for £900,000, approximately $1.1 million. The highest price ever paid for Titanic memorabilia. An anonymous American will buy it. The watch that Vincent carried to remember his father. The watch that stopped when the Titanic went down. The watch that marked the moment Vincent's life changed completely. Even the watch will outlive Vincent and serve a purpose. The auction proceeds support preservation efforts. The watch becomes useful one final time. Vincent dies in February of 1959. He is buried twice, once at Ferncliff, once at Sleepy Hollow. He leaves behind a widow who will spend the next 48 years giving away his fortune. He leaves behind a half-brother who receives nothing and contests everything and loses. He leaves behind institutions that will bear his name, buildings that will carry plaques acknowledging his donations, playgrounds where children will play without knowing who paid for the land. He leaves behind questions he never answered. Why did he hate Jakey so completely? Why did he destroy his father's house? Why did he carry the stopped watch every day for 47 years? And the biggest question, was he happy? Brooke's gravestone says she was. Vincent's gravestone says nothing. Sometimes silence is the most honest answer. Chapter 5. What Remained, 1959. Pookie's 48 years. 1959. Brooke Astor is 57 years old when Vincent dies. She inherits $60 million. She inherits real estate, art, jewelry, membership in social circles most Americans cannot imagine. And she inherits a job president of the Vincent Astor Foundation with an endowment exceeding $100 million. Most wealthy widows would hire professional managers. They would delegate decisions to foundation officers and grant administrators. They would sign checks and attend galas and let other people do the actual work. Brooke does something different. She makes it her policy to personally visit every organization that requests foundation money. Every single one. If a homeless shelter in the Bronx applies for funding, Brooke visits the shelter. She walks through the building. She meets staff and residents. She inspects conditions herself, the beds, the bathrooms, the kitchen. If a community center in Harlem asks for support, Brooke tours the facility. She watches programs in operation. She asks about budgets, management, outcomes, if a library needs renovation funds. Brooke examines the building. She evaluates whether proposed work is necessary or cosmetic. She does not send assistants. She goes herself. She sees with her own eyes. Linda Gillies, who becomes foundation director in 1973, will later estimate that Mrs. Astor visited hundreds of sites over the years, perhaps thousands. Every hospital, school, church, community program that received Vincent Astor Foundation funding was inspected personally by Brooke Astor. This is unusual. This is work most wealthy people consider beneath them. The foundation supports major institutions. The New York Public Library receives funding for restoration and acquisitions. The Metropolitan Museum of Art receives grants for exhibitions and conservation. The Bronx Zoo receives money for improved habitats. Carnegie Hall receives funding for building preservation, but the foundation also supports organizations nobody writes about: homeless shelters, community health clinics, after-school programs in neighborhoods where wealthy New Yorkers never go, food banks, job training centers, legal aid societies. In 1967, the foundation grants $1 million to the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation in Brooklyn, one of New York's poorest neighborhoods, predominantly black, suffering decades of disinvestment. The grant helps construct community superblocks, car-free zones, creating safer, more livable spaces. $1 million in 1967 is enormous. It represents commitment not just to poverty alleviation, but to addressing racial inequality and urban decay. It represents taking the Astor fortune built partly on slum tenements and directing it toward repairing damage that system caused. Brooke's philosophy is influenced by Jane Jacobs' book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, published in 1961. Jacobs argues successful neighborhoods need parks, playgrounds, community gathering spaces. Brooke funds what she calls outdoor living rooms, small parks with benches, chess tables, landscaping. These parks are installed in public housing projects across New York. The George Washington Carver houses in East Harlem, the Jacob Rees houses on the Lower East Side, projects in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in neighborhoods where green space is scarce. Brooke visits everyone. She watches children play on equipment the foundation funded. She sits on benches and talks with residents. She often quotes, "Money is like manure. It's not worth a thing unless it's spread around." Vincent's fortune, concentrated for generations, is now being spread. Brooke distributes it to organizations and neighborhoods that need it. She serves on boards. She attends meetings. She uses her social status to pressure other wealthy people to donate. If Brooke Astor supports an organization, that organization becomes fashionable. Other donors follow. In 1988, Brooke receives the National Medal of Arts. In 1998, at age 96, she receives the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in America. She becomes known as New York's First Lady of Philanthropy. She becomes more famous than Vincent ever was, not because she inherited money, but because she gave it away. In 1996, Brooke makes a shocking decision. She announces the Vincent Astor Foundation will spend down its entire endowment and close permanently. Most foundations are designed to exist forever. They invest endowments, spend only returns, preserve principal for perpetuity. Brooke decides otherwise. She believes money should serve the present, not preserve itself for an indefinite future. Over the next year, the foundation distributes remaining assets. The final grant, December 1997, is $5 million to establish the Astor Fund for public school libraries. The Vincent Astor Foundation closes after 49 years. It has distributed approximately $195 million. Vincent ran it 11 years and gave away a fraction. Brooke ran it 38 years and gave away the rest. She spent Vincent's fortune completely. She fulfilled his mission alleviating human misery, then closed the doors because nothing remained to give. Brooke is 95 when the foundation closes. She continues working with other organizations. She serves on boards. She attends events. She uses her influence to support causes she believes in. She does this until she is over 100 years old, and then her son decides to rob her. The theft. 2006. Brooke Astor is 104 years old. She suffers from dementia. Her memory fails. Her cognition declines. She requires full-time care at Holly Hill, her Briarcliff Manor estate, attended by nurses managing her daily needs. Her son, Anthony Dryden Marshall, manages her finances. He is 82 years old. He is Brooke's only child from her first marriage. He has worked sporadically as a theatrical producer. Funding Broadway shows that mostly failed. He has spent his life near enormous wealth without controlling it. His mother spent 48 years giving away the Astor fortune. Anthony watched. He waited. He understood when Brooke died. He would inherit whatever remained. But as Brooke ages, as her mind deteriorates, Anthony decides he cannot wait. He begins diverting money. He pays himself $1 million annually from Brooke's accounts without her knowledge. He reduces her medical care despite her declining health. Alice Perdue, an employee in Brooke's business office, notices discrepancies. She reports concerns, but Anthony has power of attorney. He claims his mother approves everything. Alice says Anthony told her never to send financial documents to Brooke because she didn't understand it. Brooke, who ran a foundation for 38 years, who evaluated thousands of grant proposals, who made complex financial decisions about hundreds of millions of dollars, Anthony claims she no longer understands money. In July 2006, Anthony's son files a petition in New York State Supreme Court. Philip Marshall is a university professor teaching historic preservation. He is 51. He has watched his father's behavior for years. He has documented dates, incidents, conversations in detailed diaries kept for 4 years. Philip's petition accuses Anthony of elder abuse, neglecting Brooke's care, stealing money from an incapacitated woman who cannot protect herself. Filing this petition will cost Philip his inheritance. He knows this. Anthony will ensure Philip receives nothing when Brooke dies. Philip files anyway. The case becomes public. Newspapers cover it extensively. The story has everything: wealth, family betrayal, a beloved philanthropist victimized by her own son. The court appoints a guardian. Brooke's medical care improves immediately. Doctors are consulted, medications restored. Nursing staff increased. On August 13, 2007, Brooke Astor dies of pneumonia at Holly Hill. She is 105 years old. Her estate is valued at $192 million. Most goes to charity. $30 million establishes the Brooke Astor Fund for New York City education. Millions more go to parks, libraries, institutions she supported throughout her life. Anthony Marshall receives $14.5 million, half what Brooke's will originally specified. The reduction reflects the elder abuse lawsuit. Philip Marshall receives $1 million. The original will would have given him $10 million. Anthony's interference cost Philip $9 million, Philip says publicly. Basically, we saved my grandmother, and that was my goal. And if it was at the cost of anything I was ever to inherit, I just don't care. He sacrificed $9 million to protect his grandmother. He chose principle over money. This is precisely what Vincent tried to prevent. Vincent left everything to the foundation and Brooke to keep money from heirs who might squander it. He cut out his half-brother Jakey entirely. Vincent's plan worked for 48 years. Brooke gave money away exactly as Vincent intended. But Brooke's son tried to steal it anyway. In 2009, Anthony Marshall is convicted on 16 criminal counts: conspiracy, grand larceny, possession of stolen property. He is sentenced to prison. He serves less than 3 months before being released for medical reasons. He dies in 2014 at age 90, never showing remorse. Philip Marshall founds an organization called Beyond Brooke. Its mission: advance elder justice and fight elder abuse. He uses his grandmother's story to educate people about warning signs of financial exploitation. Vincent spent 47 years trying to prove he deserved his inheritance. He gave away millions. He established a foundation to ensure money served some purpose beyond his comfort. And 48 years after his death, his widow's son stole from her anyway. Money does not corrupt everyone. Philip gave up $9 million on principle. Brooke gave away $195 million because she believed it was right. But money corrupts enough people that the pattern holds. What they left. Ferncliff no longer belongs to the Astor family. When Vincent died, he bequeathed the main house to Benedictine Hospital. Brooke donated Astor Courts, the converted sports pavilion, to the Catholic Archdiocese of New York. In 1965, it became Ferncliff Nursing Home, operated by Carmelite Sisters for the Aged and Infirm. In 1964, Brooke donated approximately 190 acres to Rhinebeck Rotary International, with one stipulation: the land must remain forever wild. This became Ferncliff Forest Game Refuge and Forest Preserve. No development, no logging, no hunting, just forest. Protected in perpetuity, the forest exists today. Hemlock trees grow thick. Deer move through undergrowth. The land looks much as it did when William Backhouse Astor Jr. first purchased it in 1853, before any mansion was built. The 2,800-acre estate was divided into parcels, sold to different owners, transformed for different purposes. None belongs to the Astor family. The name remains on the forest preserve, but the family is gone. The St. Regis Hotel still operates on Fifth Avenue. The building Vincent's father opened in 1904. The building Vincent lost during the Depression and regained in 1935. The building he renovated and took pride in. The hotel is now owned by Marriott International. It is corporate property, managed by executives with no connection to the Astor family beyond marketing history, but it still stands, still functions, still serves the purpose Vincent's father intended. The institutions Vincent and Brooke funded still operate. The New York Public Library opens every day. The lions at the entrance were originally named Leo Astor and Leo Lennox. Most people now call them Patience and Fortitude, but the library remembers where money came from. The Metropolitan Museum displays art the Vincent Astor Foundation helped acquire. Carnegie Hall hosts concerts in a building renovated with foundation grants. The Bronx Zoo maintains habitats the foundation supported. The housing projects where Brooke installed outdoor living rooms still stand. Some parks are well maintained, some have deteriorated, but they exist. Small green spaces in neighborhoods where green space is precious. The playgrounds Vincent built in the Bronx and Harlem in the 1920s and 30s still serve children. Equipment has been replaced multiple times, but the land remains dedicated to public use. There are no Astor Mansion museums, no guided tours, no $30 admission fees. The Vanderbilts left the Breakers in Newport, 70 rooms of marble and gilt where tourists pay to photograph themselves. The Breakers is a monument to excess. The Astors left institutions that work, libraries that lend books, museums that display art, parks that provide green space, a forest that must remain wild forever. One family built monuments to themselves, the other built tools for everyone else. On April 27th, 2024, 65 years after Vincent's death, his father's gold pocket watch sold at auction. Henry Aldridge and Son in Wiltshire, England. The watch recovered from John Jacob Astor IV's body after Titanic sank. Its hands frozen at the moment of sinking. Estimated price £100,000 to £150,000. Final price £900,000, approximately 1.1 million American dollars. The highest price ever paid for Titanic memorabilia. An anonymous American buyer purchased it, no name released, no statement about why they wanted it. The watch Vincent carried every day for 47 years now belongs to someone who never met him. The watch that marked the moment his father drowned. The moment Vincent inherited everything. The moment his life became defined by loss and wealth and desperate attempts to prove he deserved what he was given. Even the watch outlived Vincent. Even the watch became useful. Auction proceeds support preservation efforts, maritime history research, Titanic remembrance projects. The watch that stopped will never move again, but it keeps serving purposes Vincent never imagined. The Astor fortune is gone. Vincent gave away millions. Brooke gave away $195 million. The foundation closed, the estate was divided, the properties were sold. But the institutions remain, the libraries, the museums, the parks, the playgrounds, the forest that must stay wild. Vincent's mother locked him in closets. He built places where children could be safe. Vincent's father drowned, giving up his lifeboat seat. Vincent spent 47 years trying to prove he was his father's son. Vincent carried a stopped watch as reminder. Now the watch belongs to someone else, but what it represents endures. The Astor name still appears on buildings, but not for their mansions, not for their wealth, not for excess they displayed. They are remembered for things they paid for that still serve people. Institutions that outlasted the fortune. Work that continues long after workers are dead. Brooke Astor's gravestone says, "I had a wonderful life." Vincent Astor's gravestone says nothing at all. Maybe there was nothing to say. Maybe everything that mattered happened in the 47 years he carried his father's watch and tried to figure out what wealth was for. Maybe the answer is that wealth is for giving away, for building things that last longer than people who paid for them, for creating places where children play and forests stay wild, and libraries lend books to anyone who wants to read. Vincent spent 67 years trying to prove he deserved his inheritance. Maybe he never did. Maybe nobody deserves to be born into everything. But he tried. He served in 2 wars. He sold slum properties. He built playgrounds. He established a foundation. He married a woman who made him laugh for 6 years. He carried his father's watch every day as a reminder that wealth comes at a cost, and the cost is usually paid by someone else. The watch sold for $1.1 million. The libraries still open every morning. The forest stays wild forever. And the question Vincent never answered remains, was he happy? The gravestone is silent. The institutions speak. The question that remains. The watch is in a collector's vault somewhere. Anonymous American buyer. $1.1 million. The highest price ever paid for something that stopped working 112 years ago. It stopped at 2:20 that April morning in 1912. The moment the Titanic slipped beneath the Atlantic. The moment Vincent's father drowned. The moment everything changed. Vincent carried that watch every day for 47 years. He felt its weight in his pocket. He knew what it meant. Time stopped for his father. Time kept moving for Vincent. And every day. The gap between those 2 facts grew wider. What do you do with a stopped watch? You cannot fix it. You cannot make it run again. You can only carry it and remember that some moments end everything that came before and begin everything that comes after. Vincent inherited $87 million when he was 20 years old, in today's currency. Approximately $2.3 billion. He inherited hotels, office buildings, tenement properties across Manhattan. He inherited a yacht. He inherited responsibility for continuing what 5 generations of Astors built. He inherited a name that meant something, and he spent 67 years trying to figure out what it should mean. His mother locked him in closets for hours. She told him he was stupid, clumsy, fundamentally unworthy. His father rescued him, took him sailing, showed him affection, gave him the only love he ever knew as a child. Then his father drowned and left Vincent everything except the one thing Vincent actually needed proof that he deserved it. So Vincent tried to earn it. He sold slum properties. He built playgrounds. He served in 2 wars. He filed intelligence reports every week for 5 years. He established a foundation dedicated to alleviating human misery. He married a woman who made him laugh. He gave away millions of dollars to people and causes that needed help more than he needed wealth. And then he died. Heart attack. February 3rd, 1959, age 67. His gravestone at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery says nothing. Just his name and dates. No epitaph. No summary. No attempt to explain who he was or what he did or how he should be remembered. Brooke's gravestone, right beside his, says, "I had a wonderful life." 10 words. 105 years distilled to a single assertion. Despite 3 marriages, despite elder abuse by her own son, despite complications and scandals and difficulties, her life was wonderful. She chose those words in 1998, 9 years before she died. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. Vincent's stone says nothing because perhaps there was nothing to say. Or perhaps everything that could be said would be insufficient. Was he happy Brooke made him laugh for 6 years? That might be the closest he came. 6 years out of 67 when someone treated his wealth as irrelevant and his fame as boring and his dark moods as something to be managed rather than endured. But before that, 26 years married to Helen, living separate lives in the same household. 13 years married to Minnie, destroying his father's house to please her. Failing anyway. 4 years during World War II when he mattered because of what he did rather than what he inherited, and decades spent sailing alone, moving across water, trying to escape something he carried with him everywhere. The stopped watch, the burden, the question. The Astors built an empire. They accumulated wealth across generations. They owned Manhattan real estate when Manhattan was farmland and held it while the city grew around them. They collected rent from thousands of families who had no choice but to pay landlords who never saw how they lived. Vincent inherited all of that, and he tried to make it mean something beyond acquisition and display. He built playgrounds where children could be safe. He funded libraries where anyone could read for free. He supported hospitals, schools, community centers. He established a foundation that his widow ran for 48 years, giving away $195 million to organizations that reduced suffering in ways Vincent himself never experienced. His mother's cruelty could not be undone by charitable donations. The closets remained in his memory no matter how many parks he funded. The watch kept not moving no matter how much good he tried to do, but the institutions remain. The New York Public Library opens every morning. The forest at Ferncliff stays wild forever, protected by the stipulation Brooke included when she donated the land. The playgrounds Vincent built still serve children different equipment now, different families, but the same land dedicated to the same purpose. The work outlasted the man. The institutions outlasted the fortune. The things Vincent paid for continue functioning long after everyone who knew him is dead. The Vanderbilts left monuments. The Breakers in Newport, 70 rooms of marble where tourists pay admission to marvel at excess. Architecture as display, wealth made visible so people can see how wealthy people lived. The Astors left tools, libraries, ease that work, parks that serve, a forest that must remain forest, places that help people rather than impress them. Perhaps that is the answer Vincent never found. Wealth is not for proving you deserve it. Wealth is for building things that outlast you. The question is not, was he happy, but did it matter that he existed? Vincent Astor existed. He inherited everything. He tried to earn it anyway. He served, he gave, he built, he funded. He carried his father's stopped watch every day as a reminder that some moments end everything. And then his moment ended. February 3rd, 1959. The watch moved from his pocket to his effects, to eventually an auction house, to an anonymous collector's vault. But the forest stays wild. The libraries lend books. The institutions he funded keep opening their doors. The gravestone is blank. The work speaks. Was he happy? We will never know. Did he matter? The forest answers yes.